Hey, it's Heather, and welcome to another adventure in gardening. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my top 7 tips for indoor seed starting. So why 7 tips for seed starting? Because I got more than 5 and less than 10, so we're just going to go with the 7. Now maybe, oh my goodness gracious girls, maybe you have started seeds so many times that you totally know what you're doing, and I'm going to tell you, stick around because I got a couple that you might not have tried already. So I'm going to give you my best tips for seed starting today. So let's get right into it. So tip number 1. So I used to give classes, workshops at a garden center, and we did seed starting, and it was a hands-on activity where everyone had their own tray to plant. And the first thing that I would say is, okay, everyone, before you tear open your packs of seeds, and I would hear the tearing as the tearing across the top. I would hear the tearing as soon as I said those words, and then I'd say, okay, well, before you tear the next seed packet open, because now I don't know if this is intentional on how seed packets are designed, but they have this little stickiness to them, okay? So if you open your seed packets perfectly, there is this little tape. Oh my word, dog. Hey, Annabelle. Hey, sweetheart. You need to there is this little piece of glue that stays right here that actually will slow your seeds down as they come out of the pack. And I would love to show you right now. Miss Bell. Oh my word. Okay, so let me show you. I might have to put them in the other room. All right, I don't know if I can do this. Okay, so if you tap, tap, tap. You see how I'm tapping? You want to tap your seeds and walk them out. And this little piece of tape actually lets you control it and just walk one at a time. All right? So that is tip number 1. Open your seed packet very carefully. Leave that little piece of tape intact, and it helps you to walk your seeds off of the front of your pack. It works. I'm telling you, I have been gardening for over 30 years, okay? Do not eat the cat's food. And I have used all of those little seed starting things. This works for small seeds. Obviously, if you're starting pumpkins, you can go ahead and grab them and there's no problem with that. But this is so much easier than those little, those little discs that you put all your little small seeds in, and you're supposed to be able to shake them out one at a time. This really works. So that is tip number 1. Tip number 2 is soil, water, and humidity. All right, so when you start your seeds indoors, when you do indoor seed starting, it is very important to use a sterile potting mixture. I use black gold, and I use a spoma. I like them both equally. They're my 2 go-to seed starting soils. Seed starting soils are sterile mixtures, and when you're doing seed starting inside, you've got so many challenges as opposed to just starting them inside where you have perfect sunlight and perfect watering, indoors, and perfect air circulation. So indoors, it's really a lot harder, and you don't want matter in your seed starting soil that could cause fungus or any kind of bacteria. So start with a sterile seed starting soil. And secondly, before I have a tray here. Okay, you want a tray that holds water. I like these little packs. This is what I like to use, okay? And you're going to fill these with soil and then put water in here and walk away. Let them wick up as much water as they want to, okay? Because ideally, until your seedlings have germinated, and then even a little past that, you don't want to water your seedlings, all right? You want them to be planted in already moistened, not sopping wet. Okay, you're not going to fill this tray up to the top. You're just going to fill it up, you know, maybe an inch or so, and then just make sure that these that your soil is all thoroughly moist. Okay, so and then you get to plant in them. So it can take a couple hours because this sterile potting mix is super dry when it comes out of the bag. So let it wick up. And then the last part of tip number 2 is a humidity dome. All right, the humidity dome, and I like these that have the little vents on the top. All right. Again, this is for the purpose of you really don't want to water these. You don't want to disturb that soil once you put your seeds in there. So keep the dome on, and you can vent it if there's too much condensation. But the moment that your seeds have germinated, you need to take this humidity dome off. Okay, it is here. It is good for germination, and then you take it off. Okay, tip number 3 is to use a heat mat. All right, and the reason this one's all folded up because it's really, until you plug it in, it's really not pliable. The reason that I love to use heat mats is because it speeds up germination. When you are doing indoor seed starting, you want it to happen quickly, okay? You don't want your seeds to stay cold and then, you know, and wet and then rot. You want it to happen very quickly. Again, the moment that your seeds have germinated or that you start to see them poke through the soil, you want to take the bottom heat off. Now, these mats are great for long-term use for cuttings, but that's a totally different subject. We're talking about indoor seed starting. So as soon as you see them, the little bits of green or the little white happen, you want to take your heat mat away. And the reason for taking the dome away and the heat mat away is because those two things are going to make your seedlings get very, very tall very quickly, okay? And that's not what we want. We want them to germinate quickly, and then we want them just to slow down and grow normal. We want root development, and we want true seed leaves. And that can take a little bit of time, and that part is okay for it to take a little time. Tip number 4 for indoor seed starting. Do I cover? Do I lightly cover? Do I not cover at all with soil? Okay, it depends on what you're growing. So if you've not grown it before, or if it's new to you, you want to go ahead and look it up, because there are seeds that do not want to be covered. They want to go onto like carrots, okay? Carrots would be a good example. Well, okay, no, carrots are not a good example because you really don't do what I do. Don't start them in packs, okay? Start them outside in the garden. Okay, snapdragons, there's a good example. So you've got your already moistened soil, and you want to just put your seeds on top and then just press them in. Some seeds need light to germinate. So another thing that comes into play when how much should you cover your seeds is how big your seeds are, okay? Your seeds, the depth at which you should plant them or cover them should be 2 to 3 times the width of your seed. So if you've got a big honkin' bean, you're going to plant it a lot deeper than you would, say, a little tiny kale seed. Now, it's always better to err on the side of more shallow, because you don't want to plant your seedlings too deep. There's another good reason why you don't want to water the trays after you've taken and put your seedlings in, because you could really drive your seeds down further into the soil. So a lot of the seeds that I start indoors are going to be the smaller seeds like kale and lettuce and things like that. And one of my little tips that I like to use is I will take and I'll have my little pack, Rose, I'll have my little pack, it's already moistened, and I'll put my seeds on top of the soil, and then I use this thing. This is an antique. Now nobody sifts their flour anymore. I'm a baker and I do not sift my flour anymore. But this works great if you put your seed starting soil in here, and then you just give it a few cranks. I'm going to make a mess right now. Over top of your seed tray, and it just gives it that little bit of dusting for your small seeds. works out really great. So cover, don't cover, lightly cover, depends on your seed. Tip number 5, you have got to have a post-germination plan. I like to think of the seeds that I'm starting in the springtime into 3 categories, okay? I've got my cold crops like kale and lettuce. I've got my hot crops like eggplant and peppers and tomatoes. And then I've got my big seeds. Your big seeds are your cucumbers and your watermelon and your zucchini, all right? Now, right now, it's February still right here, right now when I'm talking to you. And the days are pretty short. When your seedlings germinate, they're going to need between 12 and 16 hours of direct sun a day. We do not have that, okay? Not right now. You can use grow lights. So if you're growing things just for fun right now, this early, and germination happens and then you put them under grow lights, that is fantastic. But for the rest of us that aren't going to be using grow lights, we need to have a plan. Which is why, so cold crops, all right, all of your small seeds like the kale and the lettuce, I'm going to wait to sow them until it's almost time for them to go outside. So I'm going to germinate them indoors in a controlled atmosphere, and then I'm going to move them directly outside. Okay, so that way there's no stretching. We don't want leggy, stretchy seedlings because it's very difficult to Rose, you are just it is sometimes you just have to trash them and start over. There are things, if they get too leggy, that you can save them, like tomatoes are an easy one to save. But lettuce, when it gets leggy, no, you just need to start over. So I germinate my cold crops inside, and within 3 or 4 days, it's time for them to go outside. So that's why I don't start them right now, because right now there's a foot of snow outside. Okay, so my calendar is marked to start my cold crops. You know, I think it's the 2nd week of March, but even then there will be variables, so I might have to change my plan. So then I've got my hot crops. Now your hot crops are going to stay inside with you a lot longer. Okay, so I will germinate them inside, and either they will go right up against that southern window or they will go under lights. And I will do that with tomatoes. I do that all the time with the tomatoes. Now as far as your big seeds go, you must resist starting your big seeds too early. Watermelon, zucchini, beans. I like to wait until May 1st. I'm in zone 6, but I like to wait until May 1st before I start any of the big seeds, because again, I germinate them inside and then they go outside. Otherwise, you know, a seed's goal is to grow like mad, okay? And we've got most of our houses are not, you know, not really like sunny like greenhouses, right? So they just reach for the light, those seedlings do. And you know, you can end up with, you know, a foot tall green bean unless you germinate them inside and put them outside. Speaking of which, tip number 6, don't be an early bird. I know we all want spring to come. We have spring fever. Spring fever is real. It's contagious and we're all gonna get it, but we don't want our spring fever or our eagerness to get growing to become summer regret later on down the road, okay? When we regret the time, the energy, and the money that we put into gardening. So, you know, that's why it's good to talk about these things so that we have a plan when spring fever hits, okay? So don't be an early bird. Know your frost date. When can we put things outside safely? So our cold crops and our big seeds, we're gonna need to know, once we've germinated them, when can we put them outside? So don't be an early bird. And tip number 7, okay, tip number 7 could be controversial, and we can talk about that. When you're starting your seeds indoor, okay, so you've got this big old tray, and if it were completely full, I would have 48 plants in here. And this is, I think this is 10 inches, okay? And I have a southern window. And I'm going to put this with my seedlings up against that southern window. And what do you think those seedlings are going to do? They're going to reach, okay? They're going to reach for the window, especially the ones that are on the back side. Now, it has been my experience, and you'll see a lot of bloggers say, turn your trays. And I have to tell you, when we're talking about we're talking essentially about vegetables today, starting them indoors. Now, we can also talk about annuals the same way. They grow so fast that what happens if I am the seedling, okay, and I start leaning, and then someone comes along and turns the tray, and now I've got to grow a little taller and lean a little more. And I have seen my seedlings, I have done this. I have seen them. It's not just going back and forth with the sunlight. No, every day we're growing and we're reaching towards the sunlight. So I opt, if I have to, and trust me, I grow so many plants from seeds. I have to grow some of them here in the southern window, and I will not turn them, okay? And I've been very successful with keeping control. Of course, the guys in the back row, they're the tallest ones, but yeah. So that is it. Those are my top 7 tips for starting seeds indoors. And I would love to hear if there's something that you've been doing for years that you want to share. I love to learn from other gardeners, so let me hear it. Hey, I'd love it if you'd subscribe so that we can stay in touch and you don't miss out on the next adventure in gardening. See you soon. Hey, we do not do that thing. I gotta go get the dome. Oh, I know. All right, we're just gonna turn this on.